Okay, let's unpack this. That whisper of Scottish heritage, it feels almost, well, built into the North American experience for so many of us, doesn't it?
It really does, like a familiar tune you can't quite place.
Exactly. And today, we're diving deep into how to actually start making sense of that feeling, see if there's a real family story over there, maybe in the Glens or Highlands. I'm really excited to get started.
Absolutely. That sense of connection is powerful, and yeah, it's often rooted in real history. It can seem daunting, though, starting out.
Totally daunting.
But the key is just taking it one step at a time. So our goal today is to give everyone some clear, actionable starting points,
Right, so you can begin your Scottish ancestry research with confidence.
and hopefully avoid feeling like you're lost before you even start.
Yeah, it's like standing at the foot of this huge mountain. Where do you even put your first foot? But our first tip, it's surprisingly personal, isn't it? Let's talk to the people right around us, our families.
That's honestly the most logical and often the richest place to begin. Have those conversations, especially, with the older members of your family.
Grandma, grandpa, great Aunt Jean.
Uh-huh. They might hold the very first crucial pieces of your Scottish puzzle. You'd really be amazed what memories and details can surface just by asking.
Things like names, obviously, but maybe even just a hazy idea of when someone might have come over.
Exactly. Or even a family nickname associated with Scotland. That could be a huge clue.
And places. Even a whispered mention of a town or maybe just a region like the Highlands or the Lowlands. It's like gold dust,
It
really.
really is. Plus, you never know what family tales have been passed down, even if they seem a little, well, fantastical
For
sometimes.
sure, every family has those.
And don't underestimate the power of, tangible things. Encourage family members to maybe dig out those dusty boxes, old photographs.
Yeah. Sometimes there are names, dates, maybe even locations scribbled on the back.
Exactly.
Look for any old official documents that might have survived birth certificates, marriage, death ones, maybe even naturalization papers if they came over.
Okay.
And keep an eye out for things like old letters or maybe a family Bible. Those can hold unexpected genealogical treasures,
It's like becoming a family history detective right in your own living room.
pretty much.
And the most important thing here, the real first step you can take right now is just write everything down.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't trust it to memory because those little details, they can become incredibly important later on.
Precisely. Detailed notes from these initial chats and discoveries will be invaluable as you move forward. It's about creating your own, like, initial roadmap.
Okay, roadmap created from family clues.
Hmm.
So once you've really, exhausted those living memory resources within the family, where should someone typically turn next in this quest?
Well, the next logical step is usually looking for official records of those key life events, what we often call vital records.
Right, the big three: births, marriages, and deaths. That's right. These are the absolute fundamental building blocks for constructing your family tree. They establish those crucial links between generations
They give you the core info: who was born, who married whom, who died.
and the essential details of when and where. Super important.
So the initial goal is like try and find these records for yourself, then your parents, then grandparents.
Exactly. Keep tracing back in time. It's almost like following a historical breadcrumb trail.
A breadcrumb trail. I like that.
Yeah. Each record you find could potentially unlock the names of the previous generation,
Yeah.
their spouses, even where they lived. And this brings us to a really significant turning point in Scottish record keeping. There's a specific year you need to know.
Okay. Which year's that?
1855.
Ah, yes, 1855. I've definitely seen that year mentioned as a really important marker in Scottish genealogy. What makes it so pivotal? What happened?
Well, January 1st, 1855, that was the start of mandatory civil registration in Scotland.
Mandatory. Okay.
Yeah. Before this date, recording births, marriages, deaths, it was handled differently. It was less systematic. After 1855, the government required these vital events to be officially registered.
And these official records, they're called statutory registers.
That's the term, yes. Statutory registers.
And I've heard they can be incredibly detailed, especially right after 1855.
Oh, they really can be a gold mine of information, particularly those early ones. Early statutory birth certificates, for instance, often list the parents' names and occupations. Fantastic for identifying previous generations.
Oh, wow. Occupations, too.
Yep. Marriage certificates can include the parents' names, sometimes even their ages. And death certificates, they can give the cause of death and who the informant was, which can sometimes point to other family members.
That's incredibly useful.
Plus, a huge advantage. These registers were centrally indexed. That makes them much, much more accessible for researchers today.
A central index sounds like a massive improvement. So what were things like before this 1855 dividing line? How were events recorded then?
Before 1855, the main records we rely on are called Old Parish Registers, or OPRs for short.
OPRs, okay.
These were records kept mostly by the local churches, predominantly the Church of Scotland. They documented baptisms, marriages sometimes called proclamations, or bans and burials within their parish.
But I can imagine that the way these OPRs were kept might have varied quite a bit from one church to another, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the key difference. The survival of these OPRs and the level of detail they contain can differ significantly. Parish to parish, it's a mixed bag.
So some might be really thorough.
Exactly, giving
Right.
loads of info, while others might be quite brief, maybe just names and dates, sometimes not even that for burials. So researching your ancestry before 1855, it often requires a different approach. It can sometimes present more challenges in finding consistent documentation.
Okay, so after 1855, detailed, centrally indexed statutory registers. Before 1855, the potentially more variable old parish registers kept by churches. Now, where do we actually find these records? Is there like a central place we should be looking?
Yes, there's one key online resource. It's absolutely essential for anyone researching Scottish ancestry. It's the official government gateway.
Okay, that sounds like exactly what we need. What's it called?
It's called Scotland's People.
Scotland's People. Got it. So this is the starting point for really digging into these official records.
It really is. It's super comprehensive. You can find not only the statutory registers and the OPRs we've just discussed,
Uh-huh.
but also census records, wills and testaments, even records relating to things like coats of arms if your family had those. It truly is the central hub.
Wow, that sounds like an incredible amount of information all in one place, is it? Is it free to use?
No. It operates on a pay-per-view basis. You buy credits, and those credits let you view the indexes of records and, really importantly, see the actual digitized images of the original documents.
The original images. Okay.
Yeah, and while you might find some transcriptions or indexes on other genealogy websites, having access to those original images on Scotland's People is invaluable. For accuracy, for picking up details maybe missed in a transcription.
That makes sense. Seeing the original handwriting and layout.
Definitely. So there is a cost to consider, but for serious research, it's generally seen as a very worthwhile investment. You get the primary source.
Okay, paid resource, but access to primary sources, I get it. What other kinds of records on Scotland's People are particularly useful for someone just starting out? You mentioned census records.
Yes. The Scottish census records are an incredibly powerful tool for family historians. It's fantastic.
How far back do they go?
They're available online from 1841 right up to 1921 currently. There's that standard rule, that census records are typically closed to the public for 100 years. Privacy.
Right, the 100-year rule. So we can currently explore almost every 10-year snapshot of households in Scotland from 1841 to 1921. What kind of information do these censuses usually give us?
Well, they generally list everyone who was living in a particular household on census night. You get their names, their ages, their occupations, their relationship to the head of the household.
Okay.
And crucially, their place of birth, usually the parish and county.
Oh, birthplace. That's huge.
It is. It's fantastic for tracing families through time between those vital events, birth, marriage, death. You can identify siblings you didn't know about, see who else was living there, maybe boarders or servants, confirm where a family was living in a specific year, and really just get a broader picture of their lives and circumstances.
That sounds incredibly helpful for building out the branches of the family tree and, understanding the whole family unit. Are there any quirks or things to be aware of when using census records?
Yeah, one important thing to remember, especially with the very first one, the 1841 census,
Okay.
the ages of adults, anyone over 15, were often rounded down to the nearest 5 years.
Round it down. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you see an ancestor listed as being, say, 30 years old in 1841, they might actually have been anywhere between 30 and 34.
Ah, okay. Good to know.
It's just something to keep in mind when you're cross-referencing with other records. It could
Uh-huh.
explain some apparent age discrepancies.
Right. That could definitely solve some puzzles. Okay, so we've got vital records, census records. Now, I've heard that Scottish families often followed certain naming patterns. Can understanding those traditions help us out?
They certainly can. Now, it wasn't a rigid rule. Not everyone followed it strictly.
Okay.
But these traditional Scottish naming patterns can provide really valuable clues. particularly when you're working with those old parish registers, where maybe you only have the parents' names listed in a baptism record.
Right, trying to figure out which John and Mary are your John and Mary.
Exactly. So knowing the patterns can help suggest possibilities.
Okay, so what were some of the most common patterns? How did it work?
Typically, the first son born was named after the father's father, the paternal grandfather.
Okay, first son, dad's dad.
Second son was named after the mother's father, the maternal grandfather.
Second son, mom's dad.
And the third son was often named after the father himself.
Got it. What about daughters?
Similar idea. The first daughter was usually named after the mother's mother, the maternal grandmother.
First daughter, mom's mom.
Second daughter after the father's mother, the paternal grandmother.
Second daughter, dad's mom.
And the third daughter, often after the mother herself.
That's really interesting. So if you start seeing these names pop up in the expected order in your research.
It could be a strong indication you're on the right track, connecting the right family members. It's another piece of the puzzle to consider.
Especially useful for those pre-1855 records, I bet.
Definitely. When documentation might be less detailed or less clear. Now, let's think about the country itself for a moment. Scotland's got a very distinct geography, right? How does location play into tracing family history there?
I can imagine it's pretty significant. I mean, records must be organized by specific regions or something.
Absolutely. Historically, records in Scotland are very much tied to specific geographical areas, primarily the county, which is often called a shire.
Shire, right, in Lord of the Rings, but real.
Huh, sort of. And then even more locally, the parish. Knowing the precise parish where an event, a birth, marriage, or death occurred is particularly crucial when you're searching those pre-1855 old parish registers.
So just knowing your ancestors were from Scotland isn't really enough to search effectively, especially further back.
Not really, no. Especially when you're delving into those earlier periods, you'll really want to try and narrow down the location as much as possible. Find that parish name if you can.
Okay.
Also, it's worth remembering that parish and county boundaries, they've shifted and changed over time.
Oh, right. So a place might have been in one county historically, and now it's in a different one.
Exactly. Or parishes might have merged or split. It can get a little complicated.
So how do we figure that out? Are there resources to help with historical locations and boundaries?
Yes, definitely. There are online gazetteers, basically geographical dictionaries that give historical info about places in Scotland.
Okay, gazetteers.
And the National Library of Scotland website.
Uh-huh.
It has an amazing collection of historical maps online, free to access. Yeah, they can show you how parish and county lines evolved over the centuries. Incredibly valuable tools for understanding the geographical context of your ancestors' lives and, importantly, the records associated with those places.
That's great to know. It sounds like those map resources could be real lifesavers. Okay, so we've been focusing a lot on direct ancestors, parents, grandparents, etc. But I've also come across the idea that it's important to research beyond that immediate line. Why look into siblings and other relatives?
Yeah, researching siblings of your direct ancestors can often provide vital clues, missing information you might not find in their own records.
How so?
Well, for example, a sibling's marriage certificate, or maybe their death certificate, might list the names of their parents your next generation back, even if those names are missing from your direct ancestor's birth record for some reason.
Ah, I see. So it's like casting a wider net.
Exactly. Gather as much info as possible about the family unit as a whole. More people mean more potential records.
That makes perfect sense. More chances to find those crucial details. What about this concept I've heard about called a FNN club in genealogy? What's that? Sounds friendly.
It is a helpful strategy.
Okay.
FNN stands for Friends, Associates, and Neighbors.
Friends, associates, neighbors. Okay.
These are the people who interacted with your ancestors. They might appear in records as, say, witnesses at a marriage, godparents at baptism maybe, or just listed as living nearby in the census returns.
Where are the people next door on the census page?
They might be other, more distant relatives or sometimes just people within their community. But researching these individuals can sometimes lead to new insights or even uncover previously unknown family connections. Maybe a witness turns out to be a brother-in-law.
So it's about looking at the broader social network, not just the immediate family circle.
Exactly. Sometimes a seemingly unrelated person mentioned in a record can hold a key piece of information or just help you understand the context of your ancestor's life better.
Interesting. Now, one thing that can really throw a curveball, I imagine, especially for new researchers, is the inconsistency in how names were written down back then.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big one. Spelling wasn't exactly standardized, was it?
Not at all.
Names, first names, surnames, even place names, they were often recorded phonetically.
Meaning how they sounded.
Exactly. Written down based on how they sounded to the person doing the recording, like the parish clerk or the census enumerator. And accents varied. This can lead to a really wide variety of spelling variations for the same name.
So if my last name was, say, Reed, R-E-I-D, I might also find it spelled R-E-E-D or even R-E-A-D in older documents.
Precisely. Or a common first name like Stephen might appear as Stephen, or maybe even Stephen with a PH.
Right.
Even place names can have different spellings. Glasgow might sometimes be written Glasgow or something similar.
Wow. That sounds like you need to be really flexible and creative with your search terms when you're looking through records.
Absolutely essential. Be prepared to try different spellings, different variations. Think about how it might have sounded.
Okay.
Many online databases, including Scotland's People, offer wildcard search options, often using an asterisk as a placeholder for missing or variable letters.
Ah, wildcards, like searching for Reed to catch Reed, etc.
Exactly like that. They can be incredibly helpful in capturing these phonetic spellings and variations. Don't just search for the one correct spelling you know today.
That's a fantastic tip. I'll definitely keep that asterisk in mind. Okay, finally. As we start uncovering all this amazing information, hopefully building our family tree, what's the single most important rule to follow to keep everything organized and, accurate?
The absolute golden rule of genealogy, seriously, is record meticulously as you go. And crucially, cite your sources for every single piece of information you find.
Every piece.
Every piece. Make a detailed note of exactly where you found each fact. Was it something Aunt Mary told you? Which specific census, year and page? Which specific birth or marriage certificate on Scotland's People, including the reference numbers if possible?
Why is keeping track of all that detail so vital?
It sounds, well, maybe a little bit tedious.
It might seem a bit time-consuming at first, I get that, but trust me, it's absolutely essential for several key reasons.
Okay, convince me.
First, it prevents total confusion later on when you've accumulated loads of different facts and maybe conflicting details. Second, it saves you from repeating the same searches unnecessarily because you can easily see where you've already looked and what you found.
Right. Avoids going in circles.
And most importantly, it allows you, and maybe others you share your research with, to verify the accuracy of your findings. If you make a connection and someone questions it, or you question it yourself later,
You can go right back to the source.
exactly, you can show the evidence. It builds a reliable, verifiable family history, not just a collection of names and dates you're not sure about. Okay, you've convinced me. Source citation is key. So what's the best way to start implementing this good record-keeping habit from day one?
You can start really simple. Digital notes, a spreadsheet, maybe a dedicated genealogy software program if you want to get fancy, or even just a handwritten notebook.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, the key is just consistency. Always record the source alongside the information you've noted down. As your research grows, you might want to explore more sophisticated genealogy software or online family tree platforms. Many have built-in tools to help manage and organize your family tree and your sources really efficiently.
Right. Makes sense to start simple, but keep it consistent. Okay, let's quickly recap those essential first steps for diving into our Scottish roots. That was a lot.
It was.
So we talked about starting with conversations with family, exploring those home records,
The home front first.
then moving on to the vital records, births, marriages, deaths, understanding that huge significance of 1855.
And the difference between the statutory registers after that date and the old parish registers, the OPRs, before it.
Right. Then we learned about the absolutely invaluable resource of Scotland's People
The main place to go online.
and the wealth of information hiding in those census records from 1841 to 1921.
Don't forget the naming patterns.
Oh yeah, traditional Scottish naming patterns, another clue. And the importance of place understanding, counties, parishes, using those National Library of Scotland maps.
Vital for context.
Yeah.
And researching siblings and the wider FN club, friends, associates, neighbors.
Right, casting that wider net, then navigating those tricky spelling variations. Be flexible.
Use those wildcards.
And finally, the golden rule. Record and cite absolutely everything meticulously. Keep track of your sources.
That's a fantastic summary. Those 10 key areas, they really provide a solid framework for anyone embarking on this really exciting journey of discovering their Scottish family history.
It truly does sound like an incredible adventure just waiting to unfold. And hopefully these steps make it feel a lot less like some overwhelming task and more like a a manageable and exciting exploration.
Definitely. Take it step by step.
So, for those of you listening, just feeling that tug of your Scottish ancestry, maybe what's the very first thing you're going to do now to start exploring? Or if you've already begun, what was that initial spark that got you started? We'd love for you to think about those first steps.
Yeah.
And on that note, thinking ahead, with these initial tools and this knowledge, what long-lost stories or maybe incredible connections might you uncover just waiting there beneath the surface of Scotland's rich and fascinating past?